Hello, grade 9s. Today we're going to look at a different type of demand called inelastic demand. And it's the type of demand that occurs in a very unique situation when we just can't live without some certain things. At the end of this lesson, you should understand the concept, understand what products and services usually have inelastic demand, and be able to recognize inelastic demand on a supply and demand graph. Starting with the basics, the English behind these words, if we think of an elastic, most of you are going to think of a rubber band that's very stretchy. An elastic by its nature means that it is stretchy or that it can change. The opposite, of course, will be true if we say something is inelastic. It means that it just doesn't change. It seems almost like it is fixed or stuck in one place. So let's go back to our concept of demand. There are actually about 5 or 6 factors that impact demand, but we've learned about 2, and most of those factors fit into these 2 categories. And those 2 categories are affordability or price, and whether or not we want or need that particular product to use or to have for the other things that we benefit from. Inelastic demand is going to change this basic situation. Inelastic demand is going to relate to a situation where it's not about wanting something, but actually needing it, and then paying whatever price it takes to have that thing until you actually just cannot afford it anymore and you can't have that particular product. Take a moment now and try to think of what some of these types of products could be in your own household. What is it that you and your parents need and are willing to pay extra for in order to survive? In your household right now, these things might be needed in different amounts. When we're not under lockdown, petrol or transport money is essential because we need the transportation to get us to work and to school and to other things. And even if the price of petrol increases, we are still going to pay for that extra price because we need to do our basic living. We need electricity. Tariffs and prices keep going up in this country, but we still are going to use a certain amount of electricity every month. And if the price goes up, most of us will just accept it and have to pay more. Under lockdown, the third one is quite interesting. It is becoming more and more essential to your household. Things that you used to have, maybe that were nice to have, are now being sacrificed so that you and your family can have data in order to work and do schoolwork. There's also another category of product, and it often relates to the fringes of the economy, including the black market, where there are things that people need and will pay for them no matter what they cost, usually because they are addicted. Cigarettes are the most obvious example of this. And under lockdown, many people are going and turning to the black market because they are addicted to cigarettes and they still need to have their daily fix. So it might not only be things that we need to survive, it might be things that we have become addicted to that we are also going to need and pay any price for. These types of items, one more time, are going to fall under a category of demand called inelastic demand. So, what does this look like on a graph? If you'll remember back to our previous lessons on economics and graphs, we can always plot demand and supply against 2 things. We have the price over here and the number of things being purchased or bought over here. Now, what's important to note here is that the graph, in terms of the quantity is not changing, it's always remaining the same. If you look at this, going up the line, this never moves. It's not changing much. And if you think about things like petrol or electricity, these things don't often change much in our household. We tend to use the same amounts unless we're in extraordinary circumstances like lockdown. In this particular graph, I've chosen the demand for cigarettes. Cigarettes, as you probably already have heard, cause people to be addicted to nicotine. And the number of people that is addicted generally stays about the same. It might increase or decrease, but at any given time, there's a certain consistent demand for cigarettes because people actually need these things in order to not feel sick. So, in this graph, what's interesting is that no matter how much the price keeps going up, people are still willing to buy these things until they can't anymore. So, to recap, inelastic demand is something that stays in one place. It's easy to remember when we look at a graph of supply and demand because this graph is staying in one place. And the number of people who want the thing are willing to pay any price in order to get it. It's also important to note that many of these products are considered essential. Obviously, alcohol and cigarettes wouldn't be considered essential, but for some people who are addicted, it becomes like that for them. It's interesting to think about this because in a free market economy, generally speaking, if people are desperate and need certain things, it's easy to take advantage of this situation and keep raising prices because people still need to buy them.